Namaste. Welcome back. I'm glad to be in your timeline. I'm glad to be in your space right now. I don't take the attention that you give me very lightly. I feel it's a sacred duty and responsibility for that to be able to do something valuable. This is what my number one goal is every single time that I take up your time and attention because it's a very precious thing where your attention goes. And I'm very keen on making sure that well, one of the things that we teach is just paying attention to where you're paying attention. This is very important for your mental well being, more important now than ever. Hey, Roxana, happy birthday, my dear. It's Roxana's birthday, and I wanted to acknowledge Roxana because she's a woman. We're going to be talking about anxious attachments. We're going to be talking about codependency. We're going to be talking about being the pursuer rather than the distancer. There's these are relationship dynamics that we have that are very real in our lives, and it's important that we discuss this. This was a conversation I was having long before this whole COVID pandemic came. And so now that this COVID pandemic comes, it becomes 10 times more important to have this conversation because everything that's been brewing in the background is now in your frickin' face and you can't deny it. And so Roxana was jumped into our Powerfully Aligned program because her number one concern was the well-being of her daughter, and she knew that she was watching her daughter really struggle. Many teenage girls do. You know what I mean? Teenage girls, teenage boys. It's like anxiety is pretty much a pandemic. It's a real pandemic going on. Hey, Jasmine. And the reason why we have anxiety as a pandemic is because we don't understand how to emotionally regulate. It's that simple. It's not a disease or a disorder, it's an adaptation to trauma. And we all go through traumas. It gets passed down intergenerationally, and we don't know what to do with it. We then get parented by anxious people, and we say anxiety runs in the family. Well, so does like parenting styles, so does attachment styles. They get passed down from generation. It's not a genetic thing, it's epigenetics. It's how the genes are expressed because of the environment. The environment is so important. And Roxana is Iranian like me, so she was raised in the same kind of paradigm, which is, looking good is very important. Hence why my hair often looks so majestic. It's, hey, blame my parents. You're gonna have to blame my parents for it. It was intergenerational trauma. Why I have to look so good? No, this is the Persian curse. Looking good. This is really important. Is how everything appears on the outside, and so what happens is that when you're raised in that environment, anything that's in the shadows, that's not really like something to be proud of, emotions, tears, whatever you want to call it, it's usually kind of silenced. Shh, we don't express those things. Zeshte, geriye nakun. Don't cry, it's ugly. We have to put out a really good, let me know if this is resonating with you. We have to really put out this beautiful exterior. Everything has to be beautiful. Everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be happy. We can't have the dark side. We can't have the negative side of the magnet, which exists, which we can't get rid of. And so what ends up happening is children in my culture, through no fault of my parents, I'm not playing victim to my parents. My parents are lovely people. Roxana's parents, I'm sure, are lovely people. She is a lovely person herself. But the problem is we're raised in environments where expressing the dark side of our nature is not appropriate. So we are trained and conditioned to suppress that other side, which what's basically the root cause of anxiety? I really want you to get this. Anxiety comes from a fracture. It comes from a contradiction. It comes from a separation of us from our authentic selves. All of a sudden, I'm in my marriage. I just got married 3 days ago. I've been married for days. Let's see. I decide, lo and behold, now would be a great time to have an affair. Okay, so all of a sudden, I start having an affair after I've been married for 3 days. Now, I could technically get away with it if I can find my ways to do that. But me living a lack of congruity with who I truly like, my higher self, how do you think I'm going to show up when I come home? Hi, honey. Like, don't you think that my body, my physiology, you know, don't you? My partner Diana is like completely like attuned. She can sense the slightest deviations of my moods, my energy. She's extremely empathic. Like I can't bullshit around her. She'll be like, no. Like like I can't. She would basically be like, you're full of shit. You know that as well. The people closest to you, your kids, when they lie, when they're not being congruent, you can tell why, because when they speak their words and I'm not congruent with them, there's this inborn mechanism within me to suppress that. There's a lack of power that comes through. And so what ends up happening is this anxiety, which is caused by the suppression of our true selves. Deep down inside, we have these little children who just want to express ourselves fully and not feel abandoned for expressing that true self, not feel punished, not feel all of those things that we might have felt growing up. And I wanted to acknowledge Roxana because she's been at this game for a while. Um, the healing attachment wounds, according to Dr. Shafali, takes about 2 years. Healing your attachment wounds. So as we're on this journey, if you're just starting out with us, welcome. This is at least a 2-year climb. No weekend seminar is going to solve it for you. No master, guru is going to heal you. This is all your own work. What you require is a community, and you require guides to heal those attachment wounds. Because those conditionings from a very young age, Roxana, were like programmed. We went back to when you were 4, and there was that expression of disconnection that you felt in that moment, and you've been feeling it all your life, and so have I, and so has every other Iranian in the world. I can't speak for all others. I mean, but most of the people that I've talked to, especially from the hardcore ethnic places, let me know if you know what I'm talking about. Um, uh, Persians, Greeks, Chinese, like the clients who I've worked with, their deep ancestral traumas come from these really strong, rich culture and heritage, which is beautiful because there's so much beautiful, rich culture and heritage. And the drawback of that is we become kind of programmed and ingrained that we must adopt whatever is said, whatever is done, or we will feel like we're abandoned. So there's this fracture, this deep pull. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about, even if you're not Persian, Iranian, or whatever. This want, this desire to express yourself, your authentic self of who you are, in your voice, in your expression, in your art, in your feelings. This is how I feel. But the problem is, growing up, um, when that's been suppressed, you then grow up not trusting in your feelings. You grow up not trusting in yourself. You hit your 20s and 30s, and if you're Iranian, you might have married somebody because your parents have kind of like, listen, they have a lot of money. Do that. He's a doctor. Marry him. Her father's an ophthalmologist. Marry her. Like, this is the shit that gets implanted in us through no fault of their own. This is just how their values. I remember my mother one time saying, you marry her. Her father is an ophthalmologist. I'm like, I'm not going to be fucking her father. It's just, it didn't even jive. It didn't even make sense to my mother, right? So, but God love her. That's just part of the cultural kind of thing. But she's not like that anymore. But she's done a lot of growth as well. But this is where intergenerational trauma begins, and took a long time to condition. So Roxana has been working on it for such a long time, and something happened. It was such a beautiful breakthrough. Roxana, I would love to share what that was. Do I have your permission just to share just the revelation of our conversation on Monday. I don't have to go into details. It's just that what you shared at that time, you were basically saying, "Look, Nima, you're getting married on Saturday through this really difficult." Two of my friends over the weekend, and I wanted to share how, during the group call, how challenging it's been for me and what I've been going through, but I felt like I didn't want to burden you because you're getting married soon. And when she said that, she was so heart opening, like authentic, and that is how you heal the wounds. Calling it out, and the whole listened, and we just gave her so much love, and I was so grateful because that was by far the first time that I had seen you, Roxanne, if you're still listening, so authentic, so real. It was like you took off the mask, the pretending was gone, the Persian kind of pleasantries and the ta'aruf and all this was off to the side, and I saw the real you. And here's the truth about Roxana, here's the truth about me, here's the truth about you, is that there's nothing more beautiful than the real you. Gorgeous, heart opening. Like, you with an open heart are absolutely irresistible. No one would be able to. Thank you for allowing it, Roxanne. It touched me so much. I've never seen you with such an open heart. And ironically, when we take the risk of sharing those wounds with others, and it's so important to have community. This is why community is so important. A community where we can actually have a have an intention of saying, look, this is a safe space for you to actually be real. As long as you're taking care of you and speaking from an authentic place, that's the real you will be unstoppable. It's an unstoppable force. The problem is we have so much of that old conditioning that blocks the real us, which then translates into these insecure relationships, which is what I wanted to talk about. So I just wanted to give you that acknowledgement, as well as to wish you a very happy birthday. Um, because yeah, your progress means a lot to me, because I know the natural resistance and story mind and complete unconsciousness that plagues most human beings before they start working through it. And now you're able to share so authentically, and you'll notice as well, if you can be that level of authentic with your daughter will also heal. Like, you can't be that real and not have a profound healing effect on your daughter. In fact, she's been waiting for that version of you to come out. And I can prove it. We've had so many of our clients with their kids with teenage problems, or kid problems, that the clash that happens, and then all of a sudden, when the mother just decides, look, I'm not going to make it about you, I'm going to really make it about me. I'm not going to try to fix or solve to help my own anxiety about you. I'm going to deal with what's going on with me. And when that happens, all of a sudden, you have a profound shift. There's no way they can't shift with you. And so this is very relevant to the conversation of healing your secure attachment wounds. Because think of the attachments that you have in your life right now. Okay? And we hear this constantly. When two people are just acquaintances, there's a moment that happens when you form an attachment. And when that attachment happens, all of a sudden we are bound by our all that are stuck in our physiology. Now, this isn't just attachment wounds with your partner. This can also be attachment with your friends. Okay? You can get into secure attachments, which is, I have my sovereignty, you have your sovereignty, I'm responsible for my emotions, you're responsible for yours. I'm here to help you, but not at the cost of myself. There's this free flow of exchange. There isn't this neediness. There's this empathy that goes both ways. There's a sense of mutuality. There's a sense of safety. There isn't this sense of anxiety. That's what a secure attachment is like. And we talk about those in our romantic relationships, but they also translate to our relationships with our friendships. Okay? And so The holy grail of human experience that causes the most satisfaction is when we can have secure attachments with our partner, with our friends, with our children. The problem is that we are unconsciously completely carrying all the past wounds like rocks in our backpacks. And we have no idea, but these relationship dynamics start to become governed by those old stories and those old patterns, those old, what do we call it? Complexes, traumas, unresolved wounds. Okay? And so we can get in from secure, which is a conscious relationship, and we can become insecure, which we have two branches that I talk about. I've been couple past couple of days ago, last week, I talked about avoidant, insecure avoidant. So scroll down and from last week to learn a little bit about the insecure avoidant, which is the distancer, the one that basically wants connection but then pushes away. That distancer doesn't really bond well with another distancer. Distancers are like a moth to a flame with the opposite pursuer, which is the anxious attachment style, which is part of the insecure attachment. So the attachment style, I want to kind of gloss over a little bit, give you a little bit of understanding of what that is for the next few minutes. Let me know if you know what you are. Free flow of exchange and secure attachment. We're caring. Yes, thank you. You're taking notes. Thank you, Marina. I appreciate that. Like when you feel like a failure, even though it's not on you. Absolutely. That is you bringing in those old attachment wounds to you. Hey, Marine, nice to see you. My 15-year-old daughter is better since I did the overview. Yes, Yanni did the overview experience in Sydney just in January. And we worked on her daughter, but we didn't work on her daughter. We worked on what her daughter was bringing up in her. And by Yanni resolving the past wounding of what her daughter was bringing up in her, she was able to all of a sudden shift the dynamic between her and her daughter. And her daughter didn't do any of the work. A lot of people who are in that insecure attachment and they're anxious attached, let's say you're partnered with somebody or you see the same, you're single but you see the same patterns. A lot of questions I get is, well, why doesn't my partner do the work? Why aren't they working on their wounds? Do they need to be? Because I want a relationship where I'm feeling seen and heard, and I don't want to be the only one doing the work. And yes, in an ideal relationship, you have both parties that are 100% responsible for healing their old attachment wounds so that you guys can evolve together in maturity. But here's the interesting thing. You don't have to have both parties doing it. Just one party taking on the work actually has a profound transformation on the other party. It's very interesting how it happens. I'm going to go over like what the anxious attachment is in just a moment. Stay with me. But what I wanted to share is Gretchen just shared in our group. Uh, she basically shared how, for the first time in years, now her husband isn't doing the program, isn't working with us. It's just her. And the interesting thing is, after their first call, he turned and said, "That Nima guy's a charlatan." This was the best part. She told her this program is a scam and that I'm a charlatan. Because what's a chiropractor doing really talking about all this stuff anyway, right? Let's face it, it's a little bit weird. That same guy that said Nima's a charlatan, just yesterday after our group call where we had a huge revelation, many people, we did an exercise that helped us clear some of the massive resentment we have over somebody close to us by doing one specific tool called the tough love letter. It blew people's minds, and their homework was to go and speak to the person that they were resentful towards. Remember, I stand for healed families. Everything that I'm teaching about trigger proof is about healing families. Well, how? By healing the relationship with myself in my family system. That's the cool part about it. It's all self-work. It's not couples therapy. It's just self-work. So she turned around and she went and After her revelation, she went to her husband and shared with him and said, "You know what? I've been making stories up about you, and I've always said that you're this and this, and I've always been playing the victim to you." She just realized that, and she started owning all of the stuff she was blaming him for, and he literally picked her, like he grabbed her and just gave her this passionate kiss, like he actually meant it. She was even said in the group and sharing, because he kissed me like he actually meant it. And here's the thing, he didn't do any work. How did he all of a sudden become more intimate with her? Because he was responding to her feminine radiance coming out when she takes on the work of healing her old wounds. Because the unhealed wounds is her little girl playing victim to him. And what kind of a guy is honestly, what kind of a guy is inspired to connect and be the man to a little girl who doesn't know how to emotionally regulate and is playing victim all the time? She owned it herself. She arose and awoke into her feminine radiance, got vulnerable, and he literally stood up and became the man. He didn't do any of the work. She was showing up as the insecure attached, the insecure, anxious attached. So, what is that? What is the insecure, anxious attached? And can relationships actually heal? Okay. Well, here's the holy grail. Secure attached tend to date securely attached. People who are confident in themselves, able to set boundaries, are not really stressed between, you know, getting together and being apart. Like, I can go on a business trip and, Diana doesn't start to get anxious because she doesn't trust me. She feels secure in herself, and I don't feel the least bit worried about her. And here's the best part: as a former insecure avoidant, it wasn't that I didn't trust my partner, I didn't trust myself. Now I trust myself, which is huge when you heal these attachment wounds. So the secure usually will date a secure, but sometimes a secure will date an insecure. Secure will date an anxious attached or avoidant. Okay? But here's the key. If both are insecure, you haven't, like my last relationship, anxious attached and completely avoidant, you will trigger the fuck out of one another. This is when you're completely unconscious of this and you don't know the tools to self-regulate. This is where relationships become toxic. This is where you have that push-pull. I love you, hate you. This extreme passion, high and extreme low lows. So when things get toxic, there's infidelity, there's lies, there's manipulation, there's violence, there's all of the above. And there's this highly sexually charged, polarized, extreme, that's actually a trauma bond. Two insecure attached, completely merging at the perfect time to bring up all of their unconscious, unresolved complexes. Hopefully, giving you a wake up call to actually take action and heal it, rather than if you get it wrong, you're actually thinking, well, no, I married the wrong person, I was dating the wrong person, I'm just going to find the right person who doesn't bring this shit up. Good luck. It doesn't work that way. I would get into pattern after pattern, and this is basically the way that it would work. So if you're both insecure, then you're going to trigger the hell out of one another. So I want you to write this down to see if you resonate with this insecure attached, okay? Anxious attached with avoidant is super toxic. Yes, okay, so Marina, I'd love for you to kind of take some notes then. That this would be great. So for everybody's benefit, this because Marina's my scribe right now. You're hired, okay? So I want you to take a look. And Dusty, I know you just got tagged here. What's up, my brother? It's good to see you. Always nice to see you. So what is this anxious attached, or they also call it ambivalent, okay? This is kind of what it looks like. It's this yearning for someone you feel that you can't have. You show up in relationships like that, yearning for someone you feel you can't have. And what you do is when you get into relation with them, whether they are partners or you're trying to mate, you start to overfunction, you over-adapt, you accommodate to others, you clean their whole whatever in an attempt to stabilize the connection, because your fear of loss is so intense. It's the anxious attach is the over focusing on the other. What are they thinking? What's going on with their emotions? How do they feel? How am I supposed to feel? Well, I'm going to feel how they feel, you know? It's the over focusing on the other and losing yourself in the relationship. Also will have a difficulty saying no. Boundaries. You constantly are second guessing yourself and feeling insecure. Did I say the right thing? Am I looking good? Check myself 100 times. I gotta check my hair. I gotta look good. I gotta overly like I gotta look perfect in every moment because the fear of loss is so intense. This insecurity is huge. You constantly feel like you give more than you get, and then you get resentful for your lack of fair exchange. I've been in friendships like this, okay? I've been in friendships in this situation where the person was like constantly like, oh, this is not mutual. They would give, 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 give. They would never ask for anything in return. And then when they would get triggered, they would start getting resentful at me for not being fair exchange. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? It's kind of like you set up by giving, 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 and then you slowly just kind of like you're calculating. These are all the deposits I've made. They better equate to a withdrawal of fair exchange soon, or I'm gonna lose my shit. But I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna keep this all to myself. A person to just give freely in that space, and you also will have an extreme difficulty in being alone. Difficult. Here's the weird part: you expect, but you have a difficulty in receiving. Huh? Talk about creating a no-win situation. My last girlfriend was anxious attached. I would constantly be saying, "I can't fucking win." Let me know if you've heard this. Let me know if you've heard in the comment section your partner say these words to you. I can't win with you. Tell me if you've heard that before. I can't win with you. That is what an anxious attached would constantly hear. Okay? If you constantly hear that from your partner, chances are you're under the umbrella of the anxious attached. Another thing that you'll do, you're very, very cunning. You will pick fights with your partner in their absences, waiting for their arrival from a trip and then jumping on them. It's kind of like a defensive detachment. You deeply want that connection, but you're resentful it wasn't there. Then when they come back, fuck you for making me feel this way, right? You put all of your emotional needs or expectations on the other person because you've lost yourself, right? You give them all of your emotional power, so you fault them when these emotions aren't so wonderful. It's their fault. It's got nothing to do with me. I can't regulate myself. That's not my fault. That's your fault. Look at what you put me through. Okay? This is a typical Jewish mother. You'll see this a lot. Look at what you've done to me. Or a Persian mother. What have you done to your mother? Okay? This is the mom guilt. This is codependency. This is anxious attach, and it's not their fault. This is just how they've been raised. They're parenting the way they were parented, right? The other part is merging with your partner's wants and needs. In other words, you've lost your fucking sense of identity and self. The you doesn't actually exist. You are just a hollow nothing without this other person that you've merged with. Now, that is the codependent unconscious is merged beautifully with the narcissist, the distancer. Because the narcissist wouldn't be with another narcissist. They merge like a lock-in key with someone who's hollow already inside looking for a source to frickin' plug themselves into. Welcome to codependency. This is the true pandemic. That's the truth. And this COVID thing, that's just exposing the real pandemic. It's not the real pandemic. So, where does it happen? You might be wondering, where does it happen? Well, this whole concept that this stress happens when a partner separates us from us, that's what anxious attachment is that, oh my gosh, you're separating from me. You're going away. I haven't seen you're going away for the weekend. You're not. What am I going to do with myself? Take a wild guess where it comes from. Just take a wild guess if you've been under that situation. Where does it come from? Well, from childhood. If you didn't have these two things, write them down: object constancy and object permanence. Constancy means, okay, like the knowledge mom's going to be back. I trust that mom will be back. I trust that she will be back. I trust that she will be here. I trust that she will be here. Okay? This like consistency that mom will be there, shadow of a doubt. So mom, if mom wasn't regulated and she was here, checked out, disconnected, gone one day, back another, and you didn't have what's called object constancy, then you are now setting the seeds, planting the seeds for anxious attachment, which then, when you have a child, because of your anxious attachment to the partner, and then when you have a baby, your baby now experiences you as not being there because you're so codependent on dad or something else. Does that make sense? This is how the traumas get passed down from generation. Now, because you can't handle your emotions, you and your partner don't have secure attachments, you're not all there, then guess what happens to you as a mother? Your child experiences you as not constant and the rock. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. I'm just helping you just kind of like go. The mom guilt, welcome to life. This is basically what's, if I'm triggering you, okay, good. Maybe it's time to wake up. Okay? I'm not here to give you good news all the time. I'm giving you here, this is what we do. There's this which kind of pierces and then there kind of heals. So you need both. You need a dose of the truth and the lantern, love. You need both. Okay, the truth is painful. So object constancy, do we know that mom will return or dad or whatever, or object permanence? Here's the other part. When mom comes back, object permanence means that she's relatively the same mom that left. If you had the experience when mom, you didn't know when she was going to come back, and when she came back, you didn't know what state she was going to be in. In other words, is she all there? Is she addicted to something? Is she codependent on somebody else? You don't know. There isn't that knowledge, that safety, then you don't have secure attachment to them. Anxious attachment is a break of object permanence and object constancy. That's it. That's why you're so anxious attached, which is why this message is so important to you right now at this time, especially if you want to be a mother, especially if you want to be a father, especially if you want passing that down, because you are now not feeling safe because of external things. So when you have a child and you don't have that safety, that child doesn't feel safe in your energy field. They don't know that you're going to be back the same person. They don't even know if you're going to be back. They don't even know because there is no constancy. That your life has been designed around lack of safety. So then what will happen is you will then grow up with this very familiar feeling that this separation anxiety, this on again, off again with responsiveness, and that creates a state of anxiety in a child long before you had language. So it's in your body. You don't even know it. Then you get into relationships and then you become this needy person because you've now confused this anxiety of separation with love. Let me say that again. You've now confused this anxiety of separation with love. So when people ask you, why is it that you choose all these assholes that treat you like shit, whereas someone who's stable is showing you all this love and you don't have, you're like, not my thing. But I'm so drawn to this longing feeling. Guess why? Because it's familiar to you. This is the repetition, what Freud calls the repetition compulsion, this compulsiveness to repeat what's familiar. So when someone pulls away from you, you've attached to, they pull away from you, you start to get butterflies and you think that it's love because it's so familiar. If you're anxious, then intimacy becomes scary because you always think that it's going away. Interesting, isn't that? That's why that pattern is so alluring, and that's why it becomes toxic, you know? And so, this, let me know if that resonates with you, right? Does that resonate? Hey, what's going on? Does that resonate? My ex did that. It was rough, hence the divorce. Yep, heard it before. Only separating my feelings from my loved ones. I used to take all the emotions of my husband's. Yeah, Yanni, that's what you said when we first called. You jumped on a call with me and you were like, can't go around me, and I bring my into it. That is codependency. That's called enmeshment. It's a sign of codependency. It's an inability to hold yourself connected. It's unhealed trauma wounds. And I'm so proud of you because you attended our overview experience not once but twice, because every time you show up, the neat thing about that is the overview experience is a deep dive into healing your attachment wounds. That's why things have shifted in your family. That's why I stand for healed families, Yanni. That's why Dusty was able to save his life. He healed his old attachment wounds with his father. And now him and his father have a great relationship. You have a healed family over there. The anxiety has gone down. You now have tools. You now have security within yourself. And guess how you show up in relationships when you're like that? A lot more relaxed, less anxious, more confident. And then you start realizing that there's nothing more important than that in the world. So those were the signs and symptoms. Does that make sense to you? It's for me, yes, it resonates. You just explained a last relationship. Kathy literally just registered for the overview experience coming up on Sunday. I've taken the magic of those 3 days and I've condensed them into 5 hours of pure magic. Yanni, you were at the last one? No, you were at the breathwork one. Share your experience. Yes, it's so freeing to separate my feelings from them. Kathy, you're coming on Sunday, excuse me. We'll get all of your stuff by tomorrow. You just registered right now. You'll get all of your links and all of that stuff ready to go. Here's what's going to happen. Uh, what you're going to do, actually, I just gave you my email. What you're going to do is you're going to email me. After you register, you're going to email me and you're going to tell me exactly what you plan on achieving over the weekend with these attachment wounds, because you have patterns that you've noticed. What is it that you want to achieve over the 5 hours? Here's what you're going to get. You're going to get from unconscious incompetence. You're going to now go up the ladder and become conscious of the incompetence that you've been showing up in relationships. All figure out why you haven't felt confident in yourself, why you haven't connected to your purpose yet, why you show up needy in your relationships, why do you have the same partner over and over again with a different haircut. Even though you're such a wonderful person, why do you keep going through that? And the answer is, it's through no fault of your own. It's through these attachment wounds. So Sunday for you will be the beginning of your deep dive. Already you've done a whole bunch of work. You've done some NLP, you've done some whatever it is that you've done. But once we have your outlines of what it is you want to accomplish, we then go in. By the end of that, you have seen and met face to face the exact thing that has confronted you all your life, so that you're now conscious of it. And like Dr. Shafali says, you can begin the 2-year journey it's going to take to heal that relationship with your younger self through these overview trigger proof toolkit that you're going to learn, so that you can practice again and again and again. And there will be an offer for you to actually jump in and join us on these calls, because this is for all of my clients and for people who are just wanting to kind of dip their toe in and see that if this is right for them. To everyone. And here's what I've never done this. I have never done this before. I was on a call with my coach, and he basically saw my website. He goes, "There's one thing missing." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Do you have a money back guarantee for them at that workshop?" And then I said, "I never really thought about it." And he said, "Yeah, give them that." He said, "Do you stand behind your work?" And I said, "Hell yeah, I do. If the person is willing to participate and do the exercise exactly as instructed, because if you don't engage with it, I can't guarantee anything. But if you engage with the work, I guarantee results. He goes, then put a money back guarantee. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to put a link on right here. I don't know if you can see it. Um, Kathy, could you just go in and put the link on? Here's what I'm going to do. For those of you, we have 2 spots left for people who are not already clients. For those of you who are willing to invest to come and join us over the weekend, here's what's happening. You're going to email me what your intention is for the weekend. And if we don't deliver that exact thing to you, and you participated in all the exercises, you can't just leave after an hour and go, no, you can actually stay for the whole 5 hours. If you don't get that intention and you aren't satisfied, you get a full money back guarantee. My coach told me to say that to you. He said, do you stand by that? I said, yeah. Not everyone's going to be easy, because you're going to meet your ego. You're going to meet what's been your resistance. You're going to meet your resistance, because these are old attachment wounds. They're not going anywhere overnight. Let's be real. It took me 2 years to create a healthy, secure attachment, and I'm married to one. And we get into arguments, but we still know how to navigate them. Not for 1 second do I think I got to get out of here, and not for 1 second does she have to worry, is he going to still be around? She doesn't have to worry about that, and I don't have to worry about that. But when you're in anxious attachment, every argument is like, I got to get out of this, or avoidant. So there isn't real safety, because it's not your fault. You didn't really have that safety as a child. You are trying hard to not play that out. And so without healing those, your relationships don't actually stand a chance. Without healing those, you're going to incorrectly think, I'm going to marry somebody else who doesn't trigger me. It's not works. You're here to be triggered. Change your relationship. Everything the teaching here is to, in this community, as you're coming along the journey with us, is to actually teach you to really embrace your triggers, because they're information. Instead of getting reactive, you pause, you breathe, and you can ask yourself a series of questions and expose the core primary wound and learn how, because it's an awareness and it's a practice. It's like yoga. It's emotional yoga for your brain. To be able to take a trigger and use that as an access point to go in and open your heart to yourself and heal those old wounds, and then come back and then reconnect in a powerful way. So that's coming up. That's coming up on, yes, Yanni said to Kathy, excited for you. Yeah, it's a pretty badass experience if you've ever been. Chelsea, you went as well in Vancouver. You were a tough nut to crack, weren't you? But I don't think anybody can experience that weekend and have any doubt of our commitment, my commitment to making sure we get to the root cause. I'm willing to be the nice guy, and I'm willing to be the prick, whichever one I need to be, in order to help you crack your heart and connect with yourself. Nothing in my world like that feeling of watching somebody deeply connect to the younger part of them that they had abandoned. It's probably the most beautiful experience, watching somebody truly love their younger parts that they've abandoned and betrayed for so long, and actually see them and love themselves the way they would love their children. It's probably, there's no better healing modality than that, no better adjustment, there's no better pill, there's no better drug. That is, I believe, what the entire planet needs in this pandemic. And my job, my wish, is to reconnect as many people with themselves as humanly possible, because right now is the time. We are facing an absolute certain pandemic of mental illness. And we're still, you pay attention, everyone's still going to be trying to find answers on the outside. Whereas my position in my years of studying human behavior and healing and transformation, and working on me, and then being able to help facilitate healing of thousands of people over the world, this is the model of what everybody needs to be able to heal. a trigger-proof toolkit that combines the cognitive approach with the body-based approach. And the biggest shift that I've made now versus before was the knowledge that before I used to do the cognitive stuff. Byron Katie's work, John DeMartini's work. But here's the problem with that. Most of these attachment wounds have happened before you had language. When you were like 18 months old and you couldn't actually talk, those feelings of a lack of safety, that separation from your parents, that non-permanence and consistency. You didn't have consistency, you didn't have permanence, and that was terrifying to your 18-month self. So you can't sit there in counseling and go, I did some counseling work. And you go sit there and then you're like, yeah, this is what my childhood was like. Yeah, but the body keeps the score. What about talk about when you were 18 months? Well, I don't have memories of that. Yes, I know you don't, but your body has a memory. And your body actually expresses that memory every time you get triggered. So the trigger becomes this portal. It's kind of like get a trigger and now all of a sudden you have this portal that says, Kathy, I've now exposed the wound. It's instead of losing your shit, it's wiser to jump into the wound and go and rescue the little part of you that's begging for you to come and get them. That's what we need to do as a collective. That's the only thing that's going to solve this pandemic. And if we don't, we have a bunch of unconscious, anxious people walking around hoping that someone else will rescue them. Believe me, there's a lot of those people out there. But this community, what it stands for is we're going to be the ones that take responsibility to help a world using our gifts to the people that need us the most. That's right. We're going to be facing a pandemic of mental illness and people who are completely unhinged who are going to be needing you to be at your best. And I'm only interested in a conversation of healing. I'll have my conspiracy theories stuff going on, the science and the whatever argument, all over that. The only thing I have control over is the state that I can create in my body and the inspiration I can create to be able to share my gifts with as many people to serve. And that's how you're going to get through this better than you did going in. So I'm going to right away, I'm going to put the link in for the most incredible. Seeing my husband and my sister-in-law go through an overview was the best experience ever. Yes. I'm going to link right now. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'm going to drop link right, and here it is. And go ahead and register or want to be one of our last couple peeps. I just dropped it into the comment section right there. And after what you do, I want you to send me an email at drnima.com. I'm expecting yours. What is it that you would love? What are your attachment wounds? What do you want to experience? Where do you want to go? What do you want to learn and get out of those 5 hours? And here's my guarantee. There is a guarantee. You heard it here first. Tag me on it, whatever. If you aren't satisfied after those 5 hours are done, send me an email and I will refund you full on, no questions asked. But I got to see that you've been doing the work. You got to ask questions. You got to participate. You got to engage. You can't just twiddle your thumbs and hide on the sidelines. We got to see some evidence that you were actually doing the work. That's my only stipulation. And if you did and you're still not satisfied, you think this Nima guy's a fucking scam, no questions asked, you get a full refund. Because I want you to join my community and see everyone what the work is like. People who are actually dedicated to this shit. And the stories they have about the changing of the healing in their families, that their relationships become more intimate, that they finally were able to leave a relationship that was toxic, finally, and being in finding their power, being the codependent. One is very powerful. The codependent, who is the weaker one, all of a sudden finishing the program, and now she's the one running the show with her narcissistic ex, who is, like completely shifted his dynamic towards her, you literally can change the way other people show up for you simply by shifting that energetic relationship with yourself and healing those past wounds. And then showing up being real, taking off the mask, healing your relationships with your family, being able to help your anxious children because you don't freak the fuck out every time they get triggered. This is what makes life meaningful. So hopefully that was useful for you. Let me know if should our intention be focused on one area of life, relationships, or shall it be based on a pattern that manifests in just different ways? Give Kathy, write as much info as you want. I'm going to read it and study it. It's going to help me direct it because it's a flow. Like I already know what the material is, but it flows based on what your specific needs are. If you jump in now and then send me an email, I will get to know exactly what it is. I'm so delighted for those of you who are joining us. It's going to be a fucking blast. Have some tissues ready, have water, have snacks. We'll get lots of movement time. The 5 hours will flow by in like 30 minutes. It's that meaningful. There's music, there's sharing. It will be a experience of connection unlike any other. You sleep better that night than you have probably in 6 months to a year. Guaranteed. This is what everybody keeps saying. So that's why I have this money back guarantee on it, because there's no way that you couldn't have a life altering experience and be inspired to jump all in with the work with us. That's really, hopefully that was useful for you. Anxious attachment, if you just jumped on and didn't get it, please rewind. We talked about where your anxious attachments actually come from, how you show up in relationships. Oh, and the last final thing I wanted to say, if you are in a relationship with an anxiously attached partner, here's how you can help. You're going to want to write this down. Knowing that they have that wound based on their history, what you do is you constantly do what's called bridging. When you are apart from them, you look them, before you go, you look them in the eye, you hold them, and you basically said, I want you to know that I love you, that I'm not going anywhere, that I'm so committed to you, and I can't wait to come back and see you. And you do what's called tethering. When you leave, you text them frequently from the office. You text them from your trips. I just want you to know I care deeply. Now, don't bullshit, but just have their wounds, see them through their wounds, and if you can, create that connection through what's called tethering, ventral vagal tethering. What happens is it calms their anxiety, it has them feeling more secure, and you then end up winning. This is what's called co-regulation. This is the new wave of communities and conscious relationships and conscious friendships. It's called co-regulation. This is what we teach in our programs. This is the most important conversation now, because becoming trigger proof is the most important skill that you can learn, not just through this COVID pandemic, but throughout life in general, because these dysregulations come from attachment wounds. And our attachment wounds cause all sorts of toxicities in our relationships that we want someone else to fix, and it's up to us to fix. You can be your own hero. And so I'm super duper grateful to be your guide on this journey. You are the hero. We are your guides. Used to be I wanted to be your hero, but now it's nope, you're your own hero. We are the guides because I'm on my own hero's journey. I got my own healing. I want to share with you all of the discoveries I've made in my recovery, and it's probably the most important work I can think of, and it's meaningful for me right now because I'm about to have a baby, knowing that that baby is getting all this information from my connection with my partner, with my wife right now. So the why here is quite big, and if the why is big enough, the hows will take care of themselves. So see you at the next perfect time. I'm going to be on tomorrow with another transmission, but I'd like for you to think of about 3 or 4 people that you know who are in these kind of codependent cycles, and I want you to get them in this group, because trigger proof is really all about healing from codependency. Whether you're codependent to work, whether you're codependent to a child or some idea or relationship, healing that insecurity is all the same thing. It's really taking responsibility for your triggers and healing old traumas. See you at the next perfect time.